Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Thursday morning, quiet Thursday morning. Well, I guess Thursday afternoon. It feels like morning because everything has just all of time has kind of molded into one concept, one vague concept, one very ambiguous concept. But here we are. The deadline is upon us. It is about 35 minutes away. The plan for this episode is going to be to offer up some of. I just wrote something for clutch points about what the Lakers are hoping to accomplish here in the next 35 minutes or so via trade, and then what they'll be looking to potentially do via buyout. The right before we went live, the Clippers made a trade acquiring Bogdanovich from the Atlanta Hawks. They sent over Terrence Mann and Bones Highland in the trade. The Lakers were in on Bogdanovich, but obviously no longer pursued him after they landed Luka. That's a good trade. I think it's a good, it's a solid gamble for the Clippers because Bogey has not been very good this year. But I do think he's still a good player. So even if he isn't good like this year, they'll have another opportunity next year after a full offseason for him to regain some of what he looks like or normally. And if he does, then, Bones Highland wasn't in the rotation and Terrence Mann was like barely in it or honestly, some people, every time I turn on a Clippers game and watch alongside Twitter, I would see like Clippers fans asking like, when are we going to see more man? So, pause. And then, we will go ahead and move along here. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me with them. Here to answer those as well. If you guys have any thoughts of your own, hit me with them as well. So the plan here is to be live for the remainder of the run up to the deadline, and then maybe a little bit from the a little after the deadline. Then I have to go pick up my daughter from school, and then I'm going to hop back on, not into the lounge, but Lee Ellis and I will pop back into the pop onto Basketball Passport to break down what we saw, winners, losers, all of that good stuff. That'll be another like hour or so kind of show. And then I'll hopefully try to take a nap. We'll see. I would like to be able to take a nap. And then later tonight, the Lakers play the Golden State Warriors. And after that game, Raj and I will be right back here in the lounge to break that down and give our thoughts at that point, the trade deadline will have been completely completed. Quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Those things help the show quite a bit. Tell your friends about the show and how much you'll like it. And then if you have any enemies, tell them how much you hate it and how you don't recommend that they watch it. And let's go ahead and get started. So I reported, let's see, I have the tweet here in front of me. So this is what I tweeted out a little bit before the article went live. I've been told since last night and through the morning, the Lakers are still very active. They'd like to move Maxi Kleber's contract and try to, with some draft capital, they have a second rounder and then some pick swaps that they could include to land a defensive-minded shooting guard. And then they're going to be active on the buyout market. So name that I have kind of circled is Josh Okogie. Obviously hasn't shot the ball well, tends to be kind of shy about shooting the ball, which is even worse than shooting and missing. But he does get after it defensively on the perimeter. He's bigger than like Gabe is and quicker than like Vando is. So he kind of slots in between there for defensive opportunities. He's the kind of player that I have kind of circled. I do know that the Lakers have run into some issues in trying to move Kleber's contract because it has that extra year on it, and he currently isn't healthy. So if you make any kind of a trade, you're going to try to, you're going to have to pay up to move Kleber's contract, and also pay up for the kind of player that you get back. Um, Now, prices are right now as low as they will ever be. That's how it goes the last half hour or so before the trade deadline. Um, so maybe the Lakers are able to get something done there. But that's the kind of thing that the Lakers have been calling around, even after the Mark Williams trade last night, on into the night, and then, throughout the morning and into this afternoon. So, yeah, Bashir, yes, he is, I believe, injured, but I don't think it's anything like all that serious. If anything, it lowers his price even further. But that's just like a possible kind of target that the Lakers have kicked the tires on, and especially after he left. Like when he was in Phoenix, he was not an option because Phoenix was not going to make any kind of a trade that would potentially make the Lakers better, just like the Lakers weren't going to send Phoenix anything that would potentially make them better. But now that he's in Charlotte, makes it somewhat feasible. Speaking of Charlotte, they traded earlier today for Yusuf Nurkic. They got a first rounder from Phoenix to take on the remainder of that contract, and fill out starter center minutes for the remainder of the year. Good tank player, Yusuf Nurkic is, so that'll work out in their favor. They sent back Cody Martin, brother of Caleb Martin, who is like I would probably say better Okogie. Hasn't been very much better this year. But I just, Charlotte is such a dump that it's hard for me to hold anything against anybody while they're there. So that's another possibility there. If Detroit is, I think Detroit is on the fringe of competing and could potentially sneak into the play-in. They might already be there. But if they decide that like Josh Richardson doesn't fit into their plans, maybe the Lakers try to convince them to send them Josh Richardson. He would be again smaller, quicker than Vanderbilt, crazy athlete, Josh Richardson. And then you would see what the return there could possibly be. So the Detroit Pistons are in the 7th seed. So that, any kind of a move that they make, they are still going to be looking to compete this year. And it seems kind of unlikely that they would just give you Richardson while they are trying to compete still. So the teams that you're probably looking to get stuff from, like Brooklyn, Day'Ron Sharpe is somebody that the Lakers have liked throughout the run up to the deadline. There, you would probably have to make a choice between Jackson Hayes and Day'Ron Sharpe. Toronto, they just traded for Brandon Ingram, and I have no idea what the hell they're doing. So you never really know. Charlotte, right, is going to be a team that you try to like pick the carcass of. The Washington Wizards also potentially. And then you kind of look down in the West, the Pelicans, you could maybe try to like, I saw a lot of people hoping for Bruce Brown. I don't really think he's on the Lakers target list anymore because they don't want to mess with their rotation. That was part of the reason that they went over after somebody like Mark Williams was, yeah, they gave up the first round draft capital and the pick swap down the road, but they didn't mess with their rotation. That was something that I reported yesterday that they didn't want to do, and they were able to accomplish that. Utah, there were some rumblings that the Lakers and Utah were in conversations yesterday about what, it's kind of hard to say. Utah's roster is a bit of a disaster. Portland, Joe Cronin's an idiot, so I don't really know what you can do there. They missed out. Like him being so adamant about the price that he wanted for Robert Williams. And I know there were Blazers fans who were like comparing Robert Williams' availability um, to Mark Williams' availability. Robert Williams has had significantly worse injuries that he is still kind of coming back from, and they wanted an unprotected first for him. And I will say this: if Robert Williams made what Mark Williams make, that would have made it easier maybe for that trade to take place. But because Williams makes I think he makes about $12 million a year, the Lakers would have had to send out Gabe and a veteran minimum to get him. Whereas in this case, they sent out Dalton, who doesn't figure to be in, or they didn't consider to be a part of their rotation this season. And they were able to bring in their starting center. So that was kind of the holdout there. The San Antonio Spurs, I think, are going to be going for it. And I think they have I'm really fascinated to see how the bottom of the West standings play out. Golden State is going to be better because they just traded for Jimmy Butler. You have Phoenix, who I think is probably going to dip a little bit because nobody wants to be there other than Devin Booker, apparently, or I guess Bradley Beal. Sacramento Kings are a mess. I don't know where they go, so they could dip a little bit. I could see the Spurs and the Warriors leapfrogging the Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns. So, maybe eventually, you kick the tires on some potential buyout guys from Phoenix or Sacramento as those two teams kind of embrace the sad realities that they now exist in. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be we are now 25 minutes away from the trade deadline. I should put up a ticker. Should I let me see if I can put a ticker on the on my background here and produce the show while I'm recording it. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Where's there room for a ticker? All right, here's what I'll do. I figured it out. I'm going to remove another big. And then I am going to see if I have let's see what we can do. Any questions while I figure that out on the fly as well? 30 minutes left. Do I think they make a trade? I think at the very least, they probably move a couple of at least one of their veteran minimum contracts and bring in a more productive veteran minimum contract. That could be a possibility. If it is a veteran minimum player that they bring in, maybe they just decide it's not worth it. We'll just wait for that player to be bought out. So in that case, I could see the Lakers maybe just, trading Christian Wood and not getting anything back for him and going into buyout season with 2 roster spots. That seems like a real possibility there. But yeah, let me see. So elements, 20-minute ticker. Let's see. Is that there? All right. I think that does it. Or does it? Ooh, I don't know if it will. Those are pictures. Nope, not going to work. All right. Not on the fly. I don't want to make the show bad while I try to do that. Let's see. I guess I have some time here because there was some extra information from that article that I'll go ahead and just read for you guys. I know me reading is probably peak content. Here's what I'll do. So the title of it, and I'll link it to those of you who want it or want to share it. Sources: the Lakers remain, quote, active after Luka Doncic, Market Williams trades. In a matter of days, the Los Angeles Lakers have completely revamped their roster and given themselves a much brighter future for years to come. It's one of, if not the most impressive trade deadlines in NBA history. According to sources with knowledge of the situation, they aren't done. Upon trading for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, a first and a second round pick for Luka Doncic, the Lakers quickly reevaluated the short and long-term goals. It's clear through their actions that the Lakers organization is a lot more confident about what Doncic and LeBron James can do together than they were about James and Anthony Davis. As reported Wednesday, the Lakers did not want to mess with their core rotation in their search for a center. Initially, they set out to trade Maxi Kleber and draft capital to find the big that they desperately needed, but found his market as was less productive than they hoped. Rob Pelinka made calls to any team with any young athletic center. My colleague Brett Siegel reported that they called Jalen Duren called Detroit about Jalen Duren, and eventually found a trade partner in the Charlotte Hornets. Mark Williams was a worthwhile gamble for the Lakers. The Lakers had hoped to hold on to their 2031 first to move with expiring salaries this summer and into next season, but considered Williams a worthy gamble. If he can stay healthy, the Lakers considered themselves real contenders this season, and he's young enough to keep them there moving forward. With mere hours to go before the deadline, the Lakers understand there is still more work to be done. Quote, Rob is very active, one source close to the team said Wednesday, and reiterated Thursday morning. He opened that roster spot for a reason. The Lakers sit above the first apron, but below the second apron. Because they can add a player via buyout so long as he makes $12.8 million or less. Per sources, they'd like to open a second roster spot to convert Christian Coloco and make him a playoff eligible at some point this season, on top of whichever player they pursue after the trade deadline via free agency. Perhaps the Lakers could dip under the first apron to open themselves to any player bought out, but that would take a ton of work, and it doesn't seem likely they have enough draft capital to get there. It's also worth mentioning the players might be reluctant to take buyouts, as it would deem them veteran minimum players until they prove otherwise. Given how difficult it was to come by any money last summer for free agents, many around the league believe players might be advised to play things extremely safe and stay put unless they can find the absolutely perfect situation to earn anything more than the minimum this summer. As Kleber is unlikely to help the Lakers this season, his contract is being dangled with the remaining draft capital to hopefully land a perimeter defender at the shooting guard spot. Kleber cannot be aggregated in trades, so the player the Lakers land using his contract would have to make as much or less than his $11 million this season. No matter what avenue they take, the Lakers definitely are considered likely to make another couple of moves to round out this roster and pursue a championship this year. Seeing as Doncic can be a free agent as soon as after next season, the Lakers are putting their best foot forward to convince him to stick around a while longer. One quick note on the buyout market. I do stand by, obviously, the reporting I did 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago before the deadline. But I am told that not told, sorry. The one thing I would say as far as the Lakers buyout options is that they are going to be a championship contender, I think, this year. They're going to be in the playoffs and hopefully, if not probably, make some noise in said playoffs, so long as Luka and LeBron stay healthy. And if that comes to fruition, if you're a free agent, especially if you're a free agent hoping to prove that you should make more than the veteran minimum, one of the best ways to do that is to utilize the Lakers playoff platform. So I think the Lakers have better options on the buyout market than most teams do. Just about anybody does. And then if they don't turn around and trade for anybody this year, they're going to be that much more interested to use what remaining salary they have. They have about $3.8 million under the second apron that they can use. That would be more than enough for the prorated salary of at least one player. They also have exception money, so they can technically go above and beyond for a player of their choosing as well. I saw Torrey Craig is a popular name to bring up here. He's 34, looks a little stiff out there. But I see it. I see the vision there. Physical wing doesn't hurt to do that. Let's see. The Atlanta Hawks are trading Cody Zeller and Houston's 2028 second round pick to the Rockets. So the Rockets get one of their own picks back. See, not a lot this year. seems to me teams want the draft capital they can control back in their own possession. With how quickly teams oscillate between tanking and not, I think a lot of teams would rather just have their own draft capital than, gamble on what another team is going to do. Like before Luka, everybody around the league wanted all of the picks that the Lakers had, especially after they thought LeBron James was going to retire. Seeing as they now have Luka, all of those gambles, they all ripped up their tickets, right? So I think there's Chris Haynes, Dennis Schroeder is being rerouted to the Detroit Pistons as part of the Jimmy Butler deal. Interesting. Again, Detroit renting out their cap space there. He did not want to be in Utah. So that makes sense. Utah also, like, again, talking about buyout options. If you make more than $12.8 million a year, I don't think very many players making that amount of money are going to ask for buyouts. Because one, their market is already suppressed because of the new CBA. And then two, because you're going from that amount of money to now the being seen as a veteran minimum player and getting back to making more than the mid-level exception is a really steep climb. So I would be pretty surprised if we do see a player get bought out who makes more than 12.8 mil. Look for that player to get basically picked up immediately because they will have already known where they were going to go at the time of their being bought out. So that's also something to watch. Look at Wendy with the bright blue suit, black black shirt, orange tie. 15 minutes to go here at the leading up to the deadline. I have groceries outside, so I'm going to go ahead and play everybody's favorite clip while my wife informed me I have those groceries out there. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip and then come back and rejoin you. Welcome everybody to the Locked On Lakers podcast.
Paul George really hit the side of the backboard.
It was wide open. I can't even make sense.
Lou Williams, he said they just came together this year as if that was an excuse, like the other team in the conference finals didn't do that.
Well, what happened was
It doesn't even matter.
We didn't have time to get it together, we just.
Did he say that with lemon pepper wings in his mouth? Is that what happened there?
You're licking it off his
Like, oh man, there were some
Wait,
absences that cost us some time.
I just can't quite figure
picking
out
it out of his teeth.
why we don't have any chemistry.
It's like Lou in your mic'd up segment.
To this day, look, that clip is elite if I'm still throwing up my old show's banner up there. All right, so the groceries are inside. The ESPN people are talking about potential guys to move, and right now they're talking about the Mark Williams trade. Low key, the Charlotte Hornets have really stocked up on draft picks, so they're kind of finally building the way that they need to. Now we'll see if they're able to turn any of those draft picks into feasible players. They've done all right with LaMelo. The guy that they drafted a couple last year he also looked pretty good before he got hurt this year. But yeah, we'll see with what Charlotte is cooking. As far as what the Lakers are cooking, we're running out of time. Just over 10 minutes to go here. And I know the Lakers are working on the phones or working the phones, and they're up against it. So I did hear after I wrote what I wrote for Clutch Points about what the Lakers were hoping to do with Kleber's contract. I did hear again that they were running into some issues there, that teams just don't want Kleber's extra year. Kleber, for what it's worth, says that he will be reevaluated in 8 weeks as he recovers from a broken foot. Maybe he's like, they do the thing where it's like Kleber is technically the trade deadline acquisition. But we'll see. I would suspect if they do hold on to him, he becomes like so. For example, Lonzo Ball signed an extension for next year and the year beyond it. It's a 2-year, $20 million contract. I would suspect that the Lakers would be looking to move Kleber for Lonzo this summer. The Lakers called Chicago about Lonzo. Had, I'm told, fairly productive talks about him, but at the end of the day decided like they would have had to gut their rotation to bring him in. And if you do that and then Lonzo gets hurt, then you're super duper screwed. So yeah, I could see Lonzo being a real option for the Lakers next year. I was actually kind of surprised that Lonzo signed. Anybody else kind of surprised that Lonzo signed that contract? $10 million a year. I feel like he could have gotten that pretty easily, if not more, on the open market after staying healthy. But for the duration of the season. Now we have Bobby Marks talking about the Lakers. Now he has Reeves and Vando starting with Doncic, LeBron, and Williams. I don't think Vando would be starting. I don't think that'll happen. The funny thing is, like, they're like, Bobby Marks is talking about the Lakers shooting. Rui is actually kind of an underrated shooter. Reeves is a really good shooter, especially catch and shoot. And then Dorian Finney-Smith has been a very good shooter this year. So yeah, of the concerns here, like the shooting isn't really the concern for me. I like scoring isn't my concern. I'm more concerned that, like, at the ends of games, will the Lakers have enough physicality to get stops and athleticism to get stops at the end of close games. So the shooting, I don't know. I don't really consider shooting a concern of mine. Dorian Finney-Smith is going to be wide open all the time. Rui is going to be wide open all the time. Mark Williams is a great finisher around the basket, both as a dunker and as a he has great touch with floaters and there's like short range jumpers and stuff like that. Then you have like LeBron is pretty good. So, and then Gabe has also been shooting like 40% over his last 20 games from 3. The Wizards just announced that they waived Reggie Jackson. Not an option, I don't think. That's the other thing, is that like we might see more players waived than players ask for buyouts. That'd be interesting to kind of track. How many guys go to their team and say, "Hey, can you buy me out? I would like to go here." Versus how many teams just be like, "Ay, con Dios, Reggie Bullock." I think my top buyout preference, even if I don't necessarily think, and I heard right before I went live that it doesn't seem all that likely, but I'm still like fingers crossed hoping for it. Larry Nance Jr. would be perfect. And now Atlanta currently sits 9th in the conference. I think Philly is going to pass them. And that's probably it. But they'll probably, like, the Hawks are basically like, if they sit there at 9th, they get a home play-in game, which they maybe consider like enough for themselves, right? But if they basically decide, okay, things are not going really well. Jalen Johnson isn't healthy this year. They were hoping to land Brandon Ingram. They were hoping to land Brandon Ingram and didn't. And here we stand, and they just traded away Bogdanovich as well. Like, they are sellers clearly. So if you're Larry Nance Jr. and you're like, maybe I could go back to LA, be the backup center, and do all kinds of dunking and running with the with Luca and LeBron, like that seems kind of intriguing. And again, like for Atlanta, they could technically save money there. They could waive Nance and save a full like 3.8 million. He would negotiate that contract so that the Lakers could basically go right up against the second apron, and the Lakers could sign him all the way up to 3.8 million, or if they're able to carve out more space. If they're able to do that, they could potentially talk to Nance's people, and he could talk to Atlanta, and the Lakers could maybe work something out there. And that's the case for everybody, right? Like, I'd have to see if Derek Jones or Josh Richardson contract. I think he has another Josh Richardson. He has a player option. Oh, for this year. He could be waived, right? Like, I got to look at the kind of year that he's having. Josh Richardson stats. I don't think he's been getting DNP CDs a lot. So, oh wow. The Memphis Grizzlies are trading Marcus Smart and a 2025 first round pick to the Washington Wizards in a multi-team trade that sends 2 second-round picks to Memphis. They just dumped him. Marcus Smart hasn't played basically at all this year. So that is wild. Let's see, Marcus Smart. Before the deadline, like before all the deadline movement, word was that Memphis wasn't even hearing, wouldn't even listen to pitches for Marcus Smart. No, take that back. That was last summer. Last summer, teams were calling Memphis about Smart, and they were not interested in having that conversation at all. And yeah, you go from not literally hanging up the phone. I'm sorry, I'm looking at a zillion things at once, but they were hanging up the phone on people who were asking about Marcus Smart. And then a few months later, they just dump him and attach a first rounder to do so. Interesting. And then Chris Haynes reporting that the Clippers are trading Kevin Porter Jr. to the Milwaukee Bucks for Marjon Beauchamp. Deck chairs. 3 minutes to go here. Now, here's where we normally get a flurry of trades right up against the last minute. I guess Bob Myers accidentally said that the Grizzlies are going after Kevin Durant. Man, that is crazy though, that they just wow. Unreal. That is a crazy. They traded 2 firsts to get him. They traded 2 first rounders to get Marcus Smart. And then they wouldn't even listen to offers over the summer, and now they give up a first rounder to just dump him for nothing? Wow, he must really not be healthy and also not very fun to be around, apparently. No, I don't think Smart. I don't see Smart getting bought out because he has another year left on his contract. They did that, like that happened once upon a time. The Detroit Pistons traded, or the Detroit Pistons bought out the remaining salary on uh Blake Griffin, and then eventually that became like I think somebody else did that with Josh Smith. Interesting. Oh, the Kings are acquiring Jake LaRavia from Memphis. So it looks like Memphis is clearing the decks for something. LaRavia is good. Like, I don't know why they would do that. Jake LaRavia is like doesn't play a ton, but he's a big like impact guy. LaRavia contract. I think he has a I don't know why his numbers are crossed out for 25-26. Oh, maybe huh. So Smart goes to Washington. My colleague Brett Siegel, Smart goes to Washington, LaRavia to Sacramento. That is wild. It is now 2:00. ESPN with a countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's it. All right. So we're probably going to hang out and see about buyout candidates and what kind of trades trickle in. Now, normally if like trades trickle in, it's because you had a little bit more activity at the very end of things than we got just now. I'm still like blown away by that Marcus Smart thing. That's crazy. Like just nothing. He was the defensive player of the year, got traded for 2 first-round picks, was hurt for a chunk of last year, was hurt for most of this year, and is now just worthless. That is wild. Crazy. The Pacers are trading James Wiseman and cash to the Toronto Raptors. Just he blew his Achilles and wasn't going to play this year, so that is just a salary dump. Looks like that's basically what we're getting for the remainder of the deadline here. Now we just wait to see who gets bought out, who gets waived, all of that good stuff. What is Washington doing? Well, they suck, so it doesn't really matter what they're doing. Like, that is crazy. Also, earlier, the Atlanta Hawks traded DeAndre Hunter. So more to the point that I talked about there with Atlanta, maybe they completely fall off because Hunter has been a big part of their success. Jalen Johnson has been a big part of their success. Bogey wasn't, but he's a big part of their core. Like, they weren't able to find a buyer for Clint Capella, and they weren't able to really add any talent either. They did get Karis LeVert, but I don't think he's very good. Like, I don't think he'll stop the Hawks from like dipping. Basically, what we all need to start rooting for is for the Hawks to just go on a 17-game losing streak for the entirety of March, because so long as a player is waived before the end of March, that player can be picked up and be playoff eligible. And if Larry Nance Jr. is somehow available, then maybe they figure that out. So, um, yeah, it's an interesting one. The Lakers turns out weren't able to come to an agreement to either shed some of their extra salary. I thought they would find a buyer for, like, they had cash to trade, so they could have just paid a team to take on Christian Wood's salary. Vucevic remains in Chicago, which is kind of surprising. The Warriors were after him. Let's see. Reddish is gone. Hayes, the Lakers actually think that they're gonna need him and play him. So it would appear that he is going to remain on the roster for right now. And then yeah, I guess Wiseman has a $2.5 million team option for next year. I wonder if they won't pick it up. So they won't be waiving Wiseman, but they also won't pick up the team option, I wouldn't imagine. And yeah, that I think is probably gonna do it, I think, for right now. Can we go Ferris Brown asking, you know what, that's what we'll do. I'll answer some questions. Can we go for Ben Simmons? No, because they didn't, like, Ben Simmons makes like $40 million a year, and that is obviously more than 12.8 million. And the Lakers weren't able to dip below the first apron and wouldn't be able to sign him via buyout. I'm going to go through here. Lakers dropping anyone? Ferris also asked that one. I could see the Lakers just waiving Christian Wood at this point. They sit 3.8 mil below the second apron. At this point, you have the room to be able to just waive him. And I think they have a use for the roster spot. They want to convert Koloko eventually. If he gets up against the number of games that he can play before he has to be converted. So that could happen. Ferris Brown also asking, can the Lakers should go for Lonnie Walker? I'd have to check to see. He has a February deadline in his contract with the European team that he signed for. And if we have exceeded that deadline, like, he had to be picked up by an NBA team by that point in February. And if we have already passed that point, he is going to stay in Europe for the rest of that team's season. Let's see. Yeah, somebody else said up there. Marcus Smart got Defensive Player of the Year over AD, and now he's worthless. This is crazy. Absolutely nuts. Isaac Pimentel, what point of attack guards would you like? Fultz is still available, and we still have a bit of a hole, in my opinion, for that type of player after losing Max. Yeah, I like Fultz. Fultz is like, I'd have to look. Like, there were some people saying Dennis Smith Jr., he's kind of small. Markelle Fultz height. Yeah, he's 6'4" and crazy athletic still. So I think the Lakers, they were interested in Fultz early in the year. And I think they will remain interested in Fultz. They now have a roster spot to start doing the 10-day contract thing. So get ready for that. I saw that Dennis Smith Jr. was like retweeting anybody who mentioned him and the Lakers. Look, I feel for guys in that spot, man. Like, you're that close. You've already achieved your dream once of making it to the pros, and then that dream is just gone, and you have no reason to understand why. So I don't know. I would imagine the Lakers will bring him in for a workout. I would imagine the Lakers will bring Markelle Fultz for a workout. And also staying Day'Ron Sharpe. Looks like they are. Let's see. Mark Stein reporting the Lakers are sending a 2028 second rounder to Memphis, plus Colby Jones, Alex Len going to Washington to acquire Grizzlies' Jake LaRavia as part of the Marcus Smart trade. All right. So yeah, Dan Wojcicki helps us, summarize the deadline to this point. The Lakers sent out D'Angelo Russell. They sent out Max Lewis. They sent out Anthony Davis. They sent out Max Christie. They sent out Jalen Chafino. They sent out Dalton Connect, and they sent out Cam Reddish, and then a bunch of draft picks. And they brought in Dorian Finney-Smith, Shake Milton, Luka Doncic, Markieff Morris, Maxi Kleba, and Mark Williams. So I would say that's a pretty successful deadline, even though we were maybe hoping for something there at the very end there. John Drake, why didn't Rob trade Woods and Hayes in a second and a swap for Dayron as a backup? A good backup, and then he opens another roster spot. I would have liked to seen that. I think the Lakers, as gross as it feels to say this, but I think they like Jackson Hayes. The fact that like that TMZ thing came out with that video and the Lakers like didn't even blink. They were like, yeah, sure, he's starting the next game. I don't think he was ever really going anywhere. I think had Dayron made just a little less money, they would have gone after him. I mean, usually if you have a 55th overall pick and that contract helps you get to somebody like Dayron Sharp, remember the Lakers can't, because they entered the deadline because they would be completing a trade above the first apron, they can't take back more money in a trade than they send out. And then when you're below the first apron, you can do all kinds of stuff. But when you're above the first apron, if you're going to make a trade, you have to take back either equal or less money. Normally, if you have a 55th overall pick on a team that isn't really is looking to compete for a championship, that player would probably be combined with like Christian Wood, and you would trade that combination for Dayron Sharp. But obviously, the Lakers were not really allowed to trade Bronny. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. And that's the opportunity cost, right? Of having a Bronny James on your roster. Though I still say it's probably worth it, especially if like I reported to Raj on that one episode, and then I followed it up by writing about it for for Clutch Points. I do believe that, especially with like the roster that the Lakers have now, if they're able to make like a legitimate playoff run, I could see LeBron taking enough money to dip well below the first apron this summer and give the Lakers full flexibility, whether that's in the buyout market, whether that's their mid-level exceptions, whether that's trade flexibility, all of that good stuff. I could see LeBron taking a solid, like, if he opts out, a solid, $10-ish million pay cut to help the Lakers build a legitimately championship contention, if not favorite type of roster. But yeah, fun stuff. I am going to go ahead and let's see, call it a show. And then, weird. Trae Young, according to Chris Haynes, Trae Young's future with the Atlanta Hawks is becoming murky. That's interesting. That is certainly interesting. We're going to get, I think, some fireworks on the other half of, like, as the dust kind of settles from the trade deadline and teams start having conversations about some of the players that they brought in and about some of what they did or did not do and what kind of players they can still add on the buyout market. And I'm not saying that I want Trae Young. I'm just saying, like, that is an interesting development if Trae Young actually is no longer in Atlanta like next year. But that would indicate again that they would be getting ready for a full-on rebuild. Like, I don't know. Like, I put a pin in Larry Nance Jr.'s name. How about that? Let's do that. All right. that is going to do it here for this trade deadline special edition of the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm going to be back streaming, not here, but on Basketball Passport. That is youtube.com/@basketballpassport. Lee Ellis and I are going to be breaking down the deadline there. And then later tonight, Raj and I will be in the lounge to break down Lakers Warriors and then everything that the Lakers accomplished at the end of the trade deadline. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I got to say really quickly, to those of you who actually like really rock with us here, I really appreciate it. There's, for whatever reason, like there are people who are like really invested in mocking those of us who are just trying to do our jobs and offer up what information that we have. We don't have the full information. I tell you guys all the time, there is stuff that I do not know. Now there's stuff that I do, and I offer that as best I can without getting myself into trouble. But like in the case of the Luka Doncic trade and that infamous tweet that I sent where I said, I'm being told this is not real. My closest source lied to me. He said after it all went down, he's like, yeah, sorry, man, I had to lie. I was like, well, great, cool. Now you're not my best source anymore. So like I tend to think that like I saw Jovan catching heat. He does great work. Look, I think people get really frustrated when they don't feel like they're getting the whole story. And I get it. It would be very frustrating. I've been a fan before too. And I remember wanting the full story and wishing I could get it. I was a fan before Twitter. Just imagine like going through trade deadlines. Basically what we would do is the trade deadline would happen. And then you would listen to the radio and you would find out what happened at the trade deadline. Like that was it. There was no there was basically no reporting. There was no Woj. There was no Shams. There was no Haynes. There was no Stein. Stein was a beat reporter for the Lakers at the time. And like Howard Beck was like a beat reporter for the Lakers at the time. But that information economy did not exist in the way that it does now. So when I grew up being a fan, I would wake up, look at the paper, like, oh, okay, we did this. Like I remember when they traded for Pau Gasol, that was like the very onset of Twitter, really, really early. And like shit, I remember the Chris Paul fiasco, right? Like the Chris Paul fiasco was like, I remember I had like a BlackBerry phone and it would load once every like 20 minutes. And you would be scrolling, you'd be trying to refresh Twitter back then. And it was like, wait, is he a Laker? Is he not a Laker? Is he this? Is he that? Like, I feel like we're all way more informed now than we ever have been. And it still can be frustrating. So I totally get it. But yeah, to those of you who rock with us here, I really appreciate it. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button, all of those good things. And about 45 minutes or so on Basketball Passport. Have a good one, everybody.